record these? You're welcome to record
Yep.
it if you want to.
I record it to the cloud, yeah, for the students that can't attend. In fact, I have just pressed the record button and let's welcome everyone here. I want to, let me just share my screen. Stop it, you stupid thing. Whoops. All right. All right, I'm going to make a quick introduction and then we're going to get this thing rocking and rolling. I want to welcome everyone to our spring 2021 Westchester University Marketing Commencement Ceremony. Last spring, we had Samuel Scott address the graduates. In the fall, we had Doug Burdett of the Marketing Book Podcast. And today we are honored to have Matt Zucker as our commencement speaker. But first, you either put this in the chat box, you send me an email. If you have had me for 3 of these classes, I want to hear from you. I have a gift. Everyone that's had me for at least 3 classes, email me or text or put it in the chat box. And if you've had me for all 4 of these, you're getting a huge prize. So don't forget, I've asked you folks to do that for me. You haven't done it yet. So claim your gift. This is my last request. I can't give gifts if you don't raise your hand and accept them. And lastly, before I turn this over to Matt, this week only, Bronze Seek Silver, Lessons from a Creative Career in Marketing. It is on sale on Amazon. $6.99 on Kindle. Do you realize that's cheaper than a Starbucks coffee? And a Starbucks coffee, this book can make you a better marketer, will make you a better marketer. As I was telling Matt, it came out about a year ago. I saw it on LinkedIn, I bought it, and I did not put it down until I finished it. Told everybody about it. It's also at the special price of $9.99 for the paperback, which is again a great price, but it's only on sale this week. So take advantage of it, please. All right, that's all. Those are all the slides I have. Let me introduce Matt to you. He is the sales and marketing lead at Profit. I just found this out today. David, how do I pronounce it? Akers, David Akers, who you learned about in the brand module. He's the genius behind Profit, which is pretty darn cool. So without any further ado, Matt, come on down and take on over.
Thanks. Nice to meet you all. Congratulations. I did not get a degree in marketing, I realized as I logged on to this. So then I realized, so let's not talk about marketing too much. We could talk about careers instead in marketing. And I'll be happy to answer questions, throw them in the chat. I'll eventually notice. I'm going to try to go full screen. But what I thought I would do is really quickly go through a few lessons I've learned that are sort of commencement speech-like, but a little more interactive and fun. And from that, it might provoke some thoughts from you about what might be, interesting, especially as you undergo your next phase. So I'll try to do this just for a few minutes, and then I'll go back to the chat view to see what you asked, and we can take the conversation there. And Tom, you can do time cop too. So my career is semi-straightforward, a little bit winding. I started as an assistant. I couldn't get a job as a copywriter. I got a job as a creative assistant, which is secretary in an ad agency, which was a great job. You'll hear me talk about adjacencies. Sometimes if you can't get the job you want, if you can get one near the job you want, pretty good idea. Became a copywriter, which is really what I wanted, until I became a copywriter. Then you want to become a creative director. And then when you become a creative director, which I did for a long time, then of course you want to run the shop, right? You want to run the department. So I did that. But then after that, I kind of hit a really nice fancy title pretty early on in my career. So then it was time to do something different. What did I want to do? So I went to a different area of the industry, from advertising into management consulting, and I'm a marketing consultant in management consulting. And there's some similarities, but there's some differences, which I'm happy to answer too, especially if you're exploring either. So that's kind of a little bit of a career trajectory. When I think back to all the companies I worked for, and most people work for a fair number, maybe not this many, but I've gotten fired a few times, so it's going to add up to the list. Is some of the companies I worked for don't exist anymore. and some are still around, like about 50%, which I think is really interesting because you kind of build your brand through the companies you work for and the experience, and then some of them go away, and a lot of them merge into each other. So it's pretty weird. But I did look at the notice, and some of these names might be ones you recognize, and some you may have no idea what they are. But they all really had a role in my career development. A few places I worked at, I actually technically worked at Ogilvy 3 times, and now I'm at Profit. So I'm not going to do the 10 lessons. I thought I would do 5 quickies. The first one I wanted to hit was around the idea of superlatives. And especially if you go into a creative area of the field, even if you go in as a marketing director or brand manager, if you go in as a creative person. I learned very early on, my senior year in college, where we did the world's largest lasagna. It was sponsored by a pasta brand, and it was so ridiculous. But the idea was a very PR-driven one, was to get famous and get in the book for the Guinness Book of World Records by making the world's largest lasagna, which we did. And therefore you earned media and you got a lot of press, and there was something worth advertising. My logo was a giant fork. And I just learned to swing big really early on. And it was only reinforced in advertising. And this could be done in any area of marketing. But marketing is a field that loves superlatives: the first, the biggest, the most. That kind of crazy extreme is very, very much rewarded. The second thing I wanted to bring up was early in my search career. These are my early search ads, where I actually sent out packets. I guess one would do it by email or social posts now, was to ask for what you want. I was explicit with people I was interviewing for to interviewing as their secretary, that yes, I want to be a secretary. I want to help you creative director, but I want to be a writer. So I need you to help me. And I need you to give me writing assignments. So really was very, very, and if I hadn't told them up front, they wouldn't have known. So I never expect anyone to know what they don't know about me. I feel like I have to tell them. Sometimes you have to reinforce it, and some people will honor it, and some people will, selectively forget it. And I've done this throughout my career. It's very clear, like, this is what I'm shooting for. And if I don't know what I'm shooting for, I might say what I'm shooting for 2 steps ahead. Because sometimes people can help you even more when they know where you want to head it, because there's usually multiple paths to get there. So that's lesson 2. Lesson 3, find your cause. I mean, this I guess is pretty mainstream right now, but everybody's got a thing going, right? Like something you believe in, and you can turn that into marketing and content and build your career through it. When I was out of work, I had some time to do like a special project. And what I did was this is when I really got into career development, was I went back and I interviewed all these creative leaders and marketing leaders, and to teach single lessons to people coming into the field or wanting to rise up. And I did a video series called Hindsight. And these really well-known people taught people a lesson. It's still up, got the New York Times and everything. And it was a really great thing to do. And it really got me the bug of wanting to share and pass along to others. Plus, by doing it, I kind of got noticed. I'm going to sound really narcissistic by the end of this call, if I don't already. Tip 4 is to combine all those things I just talked about. And when I was at Ogilvy, we did this really interesting program to get noticed. It was during the recession, and Ogilvy One, which is the digital and direct marketing arm of Ogilvy, was really not well known anymore. Ogilvy Master Brand was. But the recession was going on, so nobody wanted to do regular advertising. They wanted to advertise marketing with results, sales. So David Ogilvy was always believed in we sell or else. He was really originally first a salesman. Yet the whole world had moved on to brand advertising and frou-frier, fluffier types of marketing, which are important, but aren't necessarily the whole story. So what we did is this global contest on YouTube to find the world's greatest salesperson. And you would win a job at Ogilvy One, which people wanted because like the job market was terrible. Another is the claim to fame, the world's greatest salesperson. Plus, you got a free trip to Cannes. We flew the 3 finalists to Cannes, to the advertising festival, and they competed on stage for the title. So it was pretty cool. So we ran this contest, and again, got lots of press, got lots of attention. We even saw revenue in our offices around the world go up because clients were so happy that, wow, this is great. You're really honoring salesmanship and what it takes to be a great salesperson. So clients really, really liked it, and it really helped us get noticed. So it was kind of a combination of those things. One last lesson is that, careers are long, the year is long, there's no semester breaks when you start working. And I like to think of my career 1 year at a time, and the resume as almost like headlines. Like, what are the stories that I accomplished that year? And it doesn't have to be a creative campaign, right? It could be a sales goal, it could be inventing a product, it could be doing something interesting. And what I realized is 2 a year is enough. One great one and one pretty good one. And if you just do that every year, that's a pretty big resume of accomplishments. Maybe some of you will be more ambitious and do more. And maybe, the occasional year you accomplish nothing or maybe one, and that's fine. But I realized this, Armin, it took a lot of pressure off me during every year if I didn't feel like I was doing enough, and I usually felt like, and I also knew the year was coming up towards the end. If I hadn't really accomplished anything, make sure I finish something, make sure I finish one thing and get that satisfaction of accomplishment. So that was something I did. And no one ever talks about that kind of sense of thinking of your resume like a portfolio of accomplishments. But I'm very outcome oriented, so I kind of get a kick out of that. Then the bonus lesson is really like, I've really found whatever you're good at, you need a couple other things you're good at. You don't have to be good at everything, but I found myself over time learning other skills that I didn't necessarily know or good at, and which is certainly not everything. But I've had to learn some of these basics to be a well-rounded marketer. I'm still pretty bad at analytics. I still can't do math, but I'm starting to pick up on some of the basics of some of these other skills and platforms. And I find it really rewarding, and people respect when you know nuance. So those were kind of my lessons. So we already heard it. We don't have to advertise my book anymore, but those were a few things I wanted to hit for you. But I'd love to hear if anything struck you in that, or if you've got any burning questions, especially where you are at the end of your term and where you are in your job search, or if you have questions about starting out in your first jobs, about how to manage your career going forward, because I will give you brutal truth. And it'll just be my opinion, which you should not take until you validate with 2 other opinions. I believe you should always get 3 people to answer any question you have, and then you can choose yourself, but then you're informed.
All right, so who's got some questions? Here's your opportunity to speak to Matt, who wrote a phenomenal book on advertising and marketing. You all should be buying at that extremely low price on the Kindle price and on the paperback. But this is our last meeting. This is the last professional marketer we're bringing in here. This is the end of my marketing strategy and planning class. So marketers, ask away.
And if nothing else in the book, you'll find stories of celebrities like Mike Strahan, Alicia Keys, and all that stuff. So we can always talk about that instead.
All right, come on, unmute and talk. Come on. Who wants to go in advertising? Anybody in this class?
Yeah. Where are people going into business or different areas of business? I've been in advertising, PR. Yeah.
I would have a question. So you were saying advertising and PR. Those are similar careers that I want to go into. So what would your best advice be for someone entering into the field?
So it used to be, really pick clear lanes. Like you had to pick advertising or PR. Digital wasn't even there yet. Direct marketing, sales promotion, or something else, or brand management. And you went in client side, not to an agency, right? Now things have really blurred so much that you can kind of change your mind and move back and forth. And I've seen a lot of people do it. So I do have advice about going in. And the one of those is have in mind what your other move might be, either in case you hate it or in case you want to move on and be more well-rounded, because that can shape what you do in that. So for example, if you like PR and advertising, right, two in some ways diametrically opposed things, or it used to be. Like advertising people hated PR people because they're not that creative. We buy our media, we're out for con, they also make more money. PR, however, look down at advertising because they buy their way to persuasion, while PR is more the elegant craft of persuasion through earned media. So it's really funny to watch them work. Both have creative functions and both have creative people, but PR is very writerly, which is really cool. The advice would be I think an appreciation of both earned and paid media and how they work together is really valuable, because there are very few people talking about how to balance both of those, because you need both, and clients need both, and there's an overdependence on paid, and a lot of earned media and owned media is not flexing enough. And I see clients get into trouble where they get stuck having to constantly buy their audience, and they don't know how to work, and all the agencies are too selfish and they're too self-centered about their piece of the pie. So to be able to be objective and well-rounded of both kinds of media and what they both contribute, even better how they work together, which is still new. A lot of people are not connecting the dots. A lot of dashboards don't show them both on the same page, which is insane. So if you could crack that, or at least demonstrate you care about that, I think that would go a long way in today's modern marketing climate where people have to, manage brand and demand.
Matt, what are you thinking about the fact that Apple turned off the track? Facebook is being now, a lot of news is coming out. There a lot of the stuff they sell to marketers is fraudulent. Google's going to make some big changes. There's some big changes coming in paid media. What's your thoughts on the direction of the future, and how's that going to impact marketers?
Yeah, I mean, this might be short-sighted of me, but I look at all these things in the next like 6 to 18 months, and which is really short. I mean, I'm admittedly short-sighted, but everything's always been changing. There's always been a crazy rule changing and a regulation and things that are coming up, surprises. So yeah, the cookie thing's going away, and Apple's introducing paid podcasts, and Spotify's doing it too. But like, it's all going to like shake out like in 12 to 18 months. So a lot of these trends, I look at the future, but I look at the future in the next year, for the next planning year. If there's a pattern of shift to DTC channels, if there's a pattern of people pulling back on media overall, then of course I'm looking 2 or 3 years out to think about how it would shape what marketing will look like. But I don't really worry about any one specific thing, except if I'm writing about it, or I want to be ready at least with a quick opinion. There's a podcast I listen to that I really enjoy called The Beancast. It's my friend Bob Norp's podcast. I've come on it a few times. Every week, 3 or 4 people come on, and he sends out articles like the day before, and it's a few different kinds of experts, and they debate ripped from the headlines topics, like anything pressing coming up. It could be Bitcoin, it could be something in the news, a shift. And I feel like I get smart about those topics really quick, or at least I figure out my own point of view. So it's terrible. That's saying I don't use my own opinion, I take others, but that's what I do.
Who's next? Who's got a question? Any question? Here's your last chance. You could put it in the chat box, and I'll read it out if you want. If you don't want to unmute and speak.
I'll ask a question.
Oh, cool.
So I think that like recently when I'm looking for marketing jobs and stuff like that, like it'll say a description and then not actually be what the job is. Like they're all kind of turning out really similar, where it's like the door-to-door sales or end up being like some weird thing. When looking for marketing jobs, like what do you think the best approach is to like go and look for them? Because those big websites like Indeed and all that stuff kind of sometimes like have the wrong descriptions because there's recruiters writing them. Yeah.
And I think even companies spend less time writing the job descriptions, which is too bad, than the people reading them, or it was written at a point in time and the need might shift. So I look for what they're trying to solve for. Are they looking for someone different? Are they looking to staff augment because they're behind, like they need to build the team? Are there 50 people? And, so I try to look between the lines of it. And then, of course, I try to do a little research, like finding someone else that works there or works at a similar company to ask their opinion on what do you think would be needed here? And then I tried all sorts of stunts, which I'm happy to share about getting people's attention. But yeah, I think you're right that the job descriptions aren't always exactly what's needed. It's a good interview question. It's a good first question, like what's important here? What's the most important thing that this job needs to have? And what's the most, because a lot of people will pick someone over that doesn't have the right skills if they have the right attitude or the right potential. Especially right now where the market's so tight, surprisingly, right? There's not enough talent to go around, it seems. So, you could probably ask questions to get to the right answers. You also might get some attention if you actually inquire about it. The problem with those Indeed sites is that when you submit there, it's kind of a dead box. So what I've seen some people do with me too is they submit to something and then they write to me and say, do you know anyone at this company? And if I do, I try to pass on and I tell them, they already submitted to the black box. But if you can recommend them in that, or at least have an informational conversation to feel them out, please do that. I find people are more taking those calls now during COVID because they think they're having more time working from home. It's been a little easier to meet with people. So some people are more generous and don't cancel as much. So I hope you find that too.
And the Indeed site, they get inundated with thousands of resumes. You're better off, in my opinion, to go for the hidden job market. Pick 10 companies you want to work for. Go on LinkedIn and throw the name of each of those companies and start to see if you can, start following some of these people's LinkedIn feeds, and then, start doing remind me, I have some stuff in the modules here that explain this system better than I'm doing now. If you send me an email, I will send that to you on how to be effective in going after the hidden job market, because I think you're best that way, especially since, unless you've got lots of experience, you're behind, the folks you're competing with. But that doesn't mean just because they say they want 3 years experience that you can't get the job. There's a student of mine who's graduating who they threw that you need 3 years experience. She still went ahead, applied, and got a job interview, and she got the job. They were so impressed by her skills. So don't, she went around to get that through LinkedIn. So there's other ways around it.
Yeah, I put one of them in the chat, but there are also a lot of these commute job marketing communities. I guess if you do a search for like marketing Slack, or you can find a lot of them. Serial Marketer is one of them. Superpath, which I think is a software, has one. There's some others like in content marketing and usability and probably just general marketing. And if you join some of those job boards, as much as they're clunky, are more personal when people respond and ask questions. And I see new students and business school students all the time saying, I'm a business student looking for a job, and people jump all over this person. So in some ways, those people are posting jobs and looking. And in these smaller communities, it's more fun. You can ask questions about the job and see if it's the right fit. They're also more real and more urgent. So I don't know. I would definitely try those. And there's probably a lot of them I don't even know about.
All right, who's got another question? Unmute.
Yeah, I have a question. So you said you worked in PR. So like one of the things that I think we have here, and I think it's typically underutilized, is LinkedIn Learning. So like getting certificates on that, do you think that if it's in the targeted area you're going into, does that actually play a role into getting a job or help in any way?
I think I started too much as a creative person, so I never cared where people went to school. I didn't even look at their grade point averages, but I think regular business people probably care. I think if they want to take a leap on you, knowing you've got one or two of those certifications says you're very committed to doing it. I don't think anyone ever believes anyone behind them knows anything. We all it's terrible. Oh, you don't know anything. Meanwhile, you could have invented a company and I have no idea, right? But I think it shows a commitment to that category or that specialty, and also that you finish things. So in some ways, I think it looks pretty good. And if you get something out of it that helps you be a little more fluent in the interview, that just shows you know how to it's good. I don't think it really matters how well you did, or it doesn't really matter. The great thing about taking those things is they're probably fairly accurate. So if you hate it, then you know not to do it. And there's nothing worse than doing something you hate. So I'm all for it. Even though I never did a grad school or business degree, I take business classes all the time just to see if I'm capable. And usually I hate the class, but at least I try, for my own taste level. So I would do it. I think it's good.
Joe, the student I just referenced, that job, they asked for Salesforce experience. They took LinkedIn Learning on Salesforce, and that crossed that box off. Oh,
it did. That's good. Yeah, certain platforms probably are looking for it, like a SaaS company. B2B marketers, if you're planning to be they probably are looking for it more seriously than Unilever. Maybe you're planning Unilever media department. They want you to know you've taken a class in media analytics. So I shouldn't say that. Maybe that would be very true. Yeah, it's a good point. Maybe I should do that too.
Who else has got a question?
I can give you a networking tip too, if you want to hear this one.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. People that do podcasts, that write for articles, that speak, no one writes to them. And we're all completely narcissistic and egocentric, or we wouldn't have published that article or been on that panel or gave that speech or came to this class, right? We're crazy. This is what we do. But no one ever people linked into them afterwards, but if you find a company you want to work for, or if you see somebody quoted that will be an interesting maybe boss, like someone powerful, like write to them and say, I saw you quoted in the Wall Street Journal. That was great, and then somehow relate it back to yourself. But I heard you on this podcast. Like, no one gets fan mail. And whenever I write fan mail to people, they always write back. If I contact them cold, I want to meet you. Can you give me 10 minutes? Nobody writes back to me. But if I find it about them, flatter them, you probably should read the article and see what you think and if you have opinion, or maybe you want to hear more about that topic, but it could be genuine too. It's a great way to get attention and get someone to write you back. It requires you being a little more forward, but I find it very comfortable to do because I have something to push off against or reference. But people are on all these podcasts, all these quotes. I mean, imagine how many CMO podcasts there are. There's like 5 of them and everyone's on them all the time. None of those people get fan mail. Maybe one of them does. So you got an opening.
That's solid gold right there. I mean, that was
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Way back when there's a book called To Swim with the Sharks Without Getting Eaten Alive, an envelope guy, Harvey McKay. And one of the things he required of his salespeople was the 66 question every salesperson had to fill out. And then he showed in the chapter how that questionnaire got them business. Like one really tough customer was a nut about professional wrestling. So the salesperson ended up into the future getting tickets to the biggest professional wrestling match, which I think is a joke. Having wrestled in high school, that is not real wrestling. But anyway, they believed in that professional wrestling. And the person got them front row seats. They took them. And next thing you know, guess what? They're buying from McKay's envelope company. So that's right. When you win them over, I saw another one where the person found out that they love Disney. And so when they did the Zoom interview, or Star Wars, they had, some Star Wars memorabilia around. You like Star Wars too? And that's all they talked about for the next hour was Star Wars. They got the job, by the way. So that's great advice. All right, who's got another question? Who's up next? You want to put it in the chat box, I'll throw it out there for you if you.
I'll go.
Okay, great.
You talked about like your own body of work and like what you do as kind of like your brand. I work in like artist and music marketing, like kind of creative stuff. So I was wondering if there was like any tips on finding like a vision within your own body of work and like kind of your portfolio in that sense.
You build your portfolio and that kind of thing. People are buying you because it's not really like they like your work or not. Your portfolio is how you see the world and your point of view. So it's their best ticket to understand how you might solve other problems. So you're going to keep that fresh and you want to keep it diverse. I'm not a big fan that business is all art and everything. I'm like, art is art, like you could do art and business, right? You can do some business and art, but try to solve problems that are business problems in your business portfolio. At least have some of those that do it. Don't expect everyone to be able to make the leap. And if you've got great art, keep it in your art portfolio. And it can bleed over. They can access both, which is cool. Like a lot of people show off their personal projects as well as their business solving projects, but people need to be able to see themselves, not themselves, but their problems that they might have to solve, metaphors at least for it in their own work. Does that answer your question about portfolio?
Yeah, like especially like the problems you want to solve, like with the vision aspect, like looking forward into your career, like kind of synthesizing what you've done and where you want to focus.
So you want to be able to show examples that lean towards what you want to solve. Or I got myself into a little trouble once because I went so deep into B2B, and I started as a B2C brand person, and my portfolio got more business to business, which is great because there's a lot of money business to business, very creative problem solving. It's a big business. It's very interesting. It's very stimulating. But when I wanted to do more B2C work, I didn't have much of it. And everyone was looking at me like, oh, I'm a tech writer, so I had to start writing funnier stuff, and I had to start having more consumer brand things so they could see that that's not just me, because people will bucket you. So you got to bucket back, you got to fight back and make sure you show up the way you want to show. People won't make believe, which is really frustrating, to be honest. But I found it's a reality. So it's show your vision, but also live into the future that you want to have, because it's not that hard to do. And it also shows that you really want to do it.
What about doing work for companies you want to work for, Matt? Is that an idea? creating art for the companies you want to work at?
It's actually a little awkward because I've seen people do it and I've been on both the receiving end. I've never done that. And the reason is because it's like if you send me, if I work on, brawny paper towels and you send to me, stop using the brawny guy, use the brawny cat. Like, first of all, legally, I feel exposed, right? Because do you want the copyright to that? What if I do come up with the brawny cat next week? Are you going to sue? Oh, it creates all these issues. Plus,
Yeah.
you don't, there's a history why I'm doing the brawny guy. So I'd rather solve a mirror problem with different, very, very different creative and avoid all that. Like, wow, there's not enough paper towels out there. People are stealing them off the shelves, plus the pulp mills. So maybe we do a campaign explaining why. Like I try to do something that's not in competition with what they have, because you might think you're giving them a new idea, but they don't want free new ideas. And it makes them very comfortable and actually could get you no response because they're so afraid of no response. So
I've heard that.
or do the competitor, or do an ad for their competitor and send it to them, or do it for a different package good, because they'll make that leap. But yeah, so I would caution against that.
Okay, excellent. Who else has a question? I won't keep you on any longer, and I know Matt is a very busy fella here. So let's get one more question, two more questions. Who's got a question? They're not normally this bashful. I guess it's because it's the last time.
And no one's asked the magic question at the end of anything with someone. I mean, can I stay in touch with you? You may not want to, by the way, and you don't have to, but you always should ask it, because the answer will always be yes. And then that's your opening, to send. Well, you can always send fan mail, like a link, thing, and you're welcome to, follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn or something. And send me questions. Of course, I'll answer them if I can. But you should always, use every opportunity. Okay, lesson 7, use every opportunity.
And here's my suggestion to you folks: get the book, read it, send Matt a review. All right, you'll stand out. You'll stand right out. And trust me, your professor's telling you it's a great book. I couldn't put it down, and I'm an old guy who's read lots of books about advertising and marketing, and I thought it was fantastic, much needed in our. In all the different marketing books, I like the approach.
Well, it's fun. Like, it's not serious. I'm not a serious person, and I bring fun to my work every day. And like, it's a different style. So I think it hit a chord because I was a little brutally honest in the book. You can see me getting fired all the time and making terrible gaffes and mistakes. So I don't put a shiny face on any. I hope it'll teach you a lot, but it'll also be kind of funny.
As well as there was laugh out loud moments just reading. I just cracked up.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to say thank you so much. Let's take our traditional thumbs up at the end of the meeting. So I want all of you to get your thumbs up, ready to go. It's the last time we're going to do a thumbs up for Matt. Let's get the thumbs up so we show the happy faces of my Westchester students. There we go. All right, thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for coming on and being our graduation speaker. I think you did share an awful lot that these students can take with them and use as they leave Westchester University. Don't forget, buy the book, send a note how much you loved it, but you really have to read the book, then send a note. Connect with Matt on LinkedIn, follow him on Twitter. And for the rest of you, you can link in with me as well. This is the last class. It was my pleasure having you as my students. And hopefully I will show up at graduation. And since I don't recognize many of you, since you've all been online, you might recognize me. I'll wear my goofy hat so you can pick me out of the crowd. Stop and say hello, all right? Or else remember my gift to you. In the future, you find me at a bar, I owe you a drink. That's the graduation beer that I couldn't give you tonight, all right? We would have had it tonight, but we can't go to Levante. So thank you. Have a great night. Matt, take care. Thanks so much for doing this. We appreciate
Congratulations.
it. Let's get a good thank you to our special speaker as we log off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.